Aloha, it's Robert Stellick with Blue Planet Surf. Welcome to the third episode of the Blue Planet Show, all about wing foiling. And this episode is with Alan Cadiz, and he is such an inspiration from the very early days of wing foiling. He's put out great videos and content and is always on the latest equipment. So it's really cool to be able to talk to him kind of about the history of our young sport. And I just wanted to say honestly that, I'm a little bit of an introvert. So for me to be able to reach out to these people and ask all these questions, what I want to know about, and all that from my home office in the garage is such a cool thing. And I'm really enjoying it. But to be honest, also, it is a lot of work to, set the appointments, prep for the interviews, film it, edit it, and then post it. So I'm not going to be able to do this on a weekly basis, but I'm shooting for every 2 to 4 weeks. I'm going to post a new show. So this is my third show, and I have another show lined up with Annie Reichert, another interview coming up soon, and then I have a few more in the works. So definitely going to keep them coming, but just not on a weekly basis. And of course, if you can't watch this whole video on YouTube, it is a long interview. You can also listen to it as a podcast, and on Android or Apple devices, you just open your podcast app, search for the Blue Planet Show, and you'll be able to listen to it while you're driving or doing chores and so on. You can do other things while you're listening as well. So without further ado, please welcome the third guest to the Blue Planet Show. So Alan Cadiz, welcome to the show. It's great to have you. You've done so many great videos about wing foiling and teaching people how to wing foil. Really appreciate that. And thank you for joining me on the show. So can we start a little bit about your background and just tell us a little bit how, your background and how you got into wing foiling eventually?
Well, thank you, Robert. Thank you for having me on the show. I've enjoyed your first episodes. Wing foiling for me, like so many people, have been, life-changing. It's so addictive. And my path to wing foiling has been sort of by chance, really. I come from a background of water sports, but it turned out that my neighbor put together a wing to try on a foil board. Well, let me back up.
Start with how you grew up and all that, like way the beginning.
I'm from Kailua boy, went to Kalaheo High School, grew up right near Kailua Beach, just a short 30-second walk down to the beach. And we lived in Enchanted Lakes when I was, I think I went to third grade elementary. And then we moved down to the beach when I was 12. And it didn't take long before I started surfing, and the neighbor had a Hobie cat that I had access to. And when I turned 18, I started windsurfing. I worked at Froome Sailing Company. I don't know if you remember that little boat store right as you come into Kailua.
Oh, yeah.
And Dean was my mentor in the early days, taught me how to sail, set me up with my first windsurfer, gave me time off to go windsurfing when the wind was up. And back then, windsurfing was the rage, the addiction. And I went to college, but then I dropped out so that I could go windsurfing. I had an opportunity to go to Malaysia to compete for Neil Pride back then. And I thought, well, this opportunity doesn't come along too often. I'm going to take a semester off and go to Malaysia and windsurf. And that turned into about a 10-year career in windsurfing, competitive windsurfing. And I ended up on Maui. The wind is so strong over here. I came over for a month to windsurf for a month prior to one of the contests. And after the contest was over, I was pretty settled in, and there wasn't any need to rush home. And I ended up staying on Maui. And I had spent a number of years training and competing, but I kind of wondered, am I going back to college? What am I going to do? And I sort of fumbled into teaching windsurfing and discovered I had a knack for it. And before too long, had a nice little business going, teaching high-end windsurfing, mainly jibing and water starting. But then people wanted to have their family and friends learn. And so I started a beginner program, and the school grew. I've been based in high-tech surf sports for the last 30 years, but I work with the majority of the shops here on Maui, teaching their clientele the different water sports. So windsurfing was the main thing. But of course, when there was no wind, we'd teach surfing.
Just going back to Kailua, growing up in Kailua, that was when Robbie Nash grew up in Kailua too. So did you windsurf together with those guys, Robbie and Pete Cabrina and those guys, or?
Well, funny you ask. Pete Cabrina lived right next door, right over the next fence. Yeah, and I remember watching him windsurf and doing his first jumps, and he was shaping boards, and he was an inspiration. So I thought, okay, I got to do this too. Robbie traveled in different circles. He was a little bit younger, and it seemed to me he was always off on tour. But his brother, I went to school with his brother, and Randy.
Yeah.
And we were partners in crime, going over to windsurf Diamond Head, and I spent more time with Randy.
Randy, yeah. Okay. Okay,
But
so then when or how did the transition to wing foiling happen? Actually, do you still windsurf, or are you just mostly wing foiling now?
Not so much windsurfing. I still run the windsurf school, although COVID has sort of changed that right now. But my daughter's more into windsurfing than winging, although I'm trying to convert her to wing surfing. You know, from windsurfing, kite surfing came along, and that was all the rage. So I jumped into that, and I lived the kite surfing, you know, eat, sleep, kite surf, eat, sleep, kite surf. Did some competitions, and kind of did the whole peak, but then kind of got over it and got more into sup paddling. And we did a lot of sup. In fact, I got a picture here I can share.
Yeah, let's do some screen sharing so we get a little bit of more visual stuff too.
This was, you know, we did a lot of competition. I don't know how many hundreds of coast runs I've done from Maliko down to Kahului Harbor. It would be the equivalent of Hawaii Kai to Diamond Head kind of thing.
That looks like one of the early SIC boards. Is that a hollow one? Yeah.
No, it's styrofoam, but yes, you're right. It's one of Mark Rappahorst's SIC boards, or Sandwich Island construction.
Yeah.
And Mark is a good friend of mine, known him for decades. He and we did the sup paddling, and then Kai Lenny showed up with that sup board with the foil on it that kind of rocked the world. And we looked at that and we're like, wow, that looks so cool. And backing up a couple weeks from that video review, Mark Rappahorst and my neighbor, Ken Winter, and I were having dinner. And after a couple bottles of wine, we talked about taking one of Ken's foils and putting it on my board, and Mark would do the glass work. And we thought about, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to put the foil on the sup board and we're going to try it out. And it never happened. And about 2 weeks later, Kai comes out with that video of him going down the coast. Now, putting it together is one thing, but making it work, you know, what Kai did was exceptional, you know, and I don't know if we would have had I don't think we would have stuck with it as hard as it was. But after watching him, we were inspired. So we did get some foil boards, both Ken and Mark and I. We got the foil boards and we started going from Maliko when it was blowing 25, 30 knots. And right away we learned it was really hard. And I had no foil experience. And people were telling me, oh, you got to learn behind a boat. You got to learn in the surf. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I just want to do it going down the coast. And I was convinced I could do it. And eventually I got a Maliko 200 and I could do it. And I could stay up for, you know, hundreds of yards at a time. And at that point, everyone else was getting pretty good. I can remember one episode where we went from North.
Was that on a really long race board, or what kind of board were you using at that point?
At that point, we were using, I think they were like 8-foot sup boards, and we were just starting to figure out, and these were, Mark was making them, custom boards. We were just starting to figure out that the shorter the board, the more easier it was to pump. You didn't have that swing weight up front.
Right.
So we were getting smaller and smaller boards. And I have another picture here. Let me see if I can cue it up here.
Yeah.
This board here, this was my latest sup board that Mark had shaped for me. I think it was just under 6 feet. That's about 85 liters. Had just the front strap, which I used to help pull up on the board, trying to get up on foil. And so it was about this time that we were trying to go down the coast and having some success. Ken Winter was right there with us, and he actually was a skilled foiler. He could windsurf foil, he could kite foil, but sup foil was tough for him. And the board he had was a 130-liter fiberglass board. It was pretty heavy, and trying to pump that up on foil was really taking its toll on his shoulders. And one afternoon, he was out there in the driveway with this little inflatable wing. And, you know, we had seen wings have been around for a long time.
And Ken Winter is your neighbor, right? So
yes,
can see him in your neighbor's driveway playing around with his inflatable toy.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, now a little background on Ken. He's been involved in windsurfing and water sports his whole life.
Right.
I first met him in Kailua in I think it was 1981 or 1982 Pan Am Windsurfing World Cup. And he actually won the event. So I didn't really know him. I mean, I knew he was the winner. Ken Winter was the winner. And then later on, when I went on tour, I competed with him at a number of different venues. But he's always stayed with it as a board designer, as a kite designer, windsurf designer, and well, probably the last few years, more kite surfing. So he's getting new prototypes all the time, out there testing them in the Maui waters, in the Maui wind. And so I knew he had access to prototypes. So anyway, he's out there with this inflatable wing. And my first impression, it was something like you'd get at Kmart, you know, a little blow up toy. And I thought, what is he doing with that? And he explained that he was going to use it to get up on foil and go down the coast with us. And I thought, well, he really wants to be out there with us. And then the entertainment began. You know, we'd go out of Maliko, and Mark and I would make a left turn and head towards Kahului Harbor, and Ken would be going out to sea. We're like, where's he going? I mean, he'd go over the horizon before we'd see him.
Wow.
And then we'd see him, he'd coming back. And I didn't know it at the time, but he had a hard time going deep, goofy foot. He needed to switch to regular foot to go deep or to go straight downwind.
Right.
And so it was difficult for him. And he didn't, like most of us, we go to the flat water spot, you know, in the harbor, or maybe down to Kanaha. I think on Oahu, you go over to, where is it, near Pearl Harbor. I've seen some videos that Kihei Lagoon.
Kihei Lagoon by Sand Island. Yeah, that's a good big
Yeah,
spot.
beautiful spot there.
Mm-hmm. So
remember, we're going out in 25, 30 knots, and he's trying to figure out how to go downwind. And it was entertaining for Mark and I. I mean, he had incredible yard sales where it's like, oh, is he okay? Wait, okay, yeah, I see him. He's back on his board. You know, oh no, he's lost his wing. You know, give chase. We'll go get the wing. And that happened a few times. And so this went on, I think it was May of 18 when we started. So not that long ago, really. You think about how quickly the sports progressed.
That's true. Yeah.
So it was later towards the fall that Mark and I were waiting for him, and I saw him coming down the swell, and he was surfing right and surfing left and surfing right, and each time he would turn the wing. Mm-hmm. And I just looked at that and I thought, that is poetry in motion. I'm ready to try this. And at the end of the run, he let me try it, and I fumbled out and fumbled in. But just that short little run, I got to my feet and got it going for a few seconds. And I'm like, okay, I want to try this some more.
So that first wing, was that like a prototype made by Duotone, or was it like who made it and how was it made, built and stuff like that? Like,
Um, well, Duotone has a factory, and I'm not even sure where it is, in Asia or wherever they make their product. And he dials up a plan on his computer, sends it off via email, and a short time later, the FedEx truck is pulling up.
okay.
So that first one,
Did it have a boom like the wing foil one, or?
the very first one had a strut on it,
Okay.
and they had sewn some webbing on it that was so flimsy that just after a couple, 3 or 4 runs, the webbing had peeled off.
Oh.
Not it just deteriorated. And then his first one with a boom, I'm not sure what he did. I think he went to the hardware store and he bought a mop or something and removed he had the dowel and the little brackets, and then he had lashed those brackets on. And then not too long after that, he was getting a guy here on Maui to 3D print a front end. It was about that time that I took an interest and wanted to try it. So we went down to Kona, and the first day like so many of us, my knees were rubbed raw, but I was getting rides and I was staying upwind. And remember, I'd come to the sport with knowing how to foil and knowing how to sail, both windsurf and kite surf. So the wing was pretty intuitive for me, and knowing how to foil, it came together. And I'm sure I've seen other people just step on and go right from the beginning. But
yeah, I think if you have the background in windsurfing and you know how to use a foil, then it's a very easy transition. That's what Zane was saying too. Like the very first time he jumped on it, he was already trying to backflip and stuff like that. So yeah, but I mean, that's Zane Schweitzer. So yeah, anyway.
The second day I tried it, I fell on the boom and broke the front end, the 3D printed front end. Oh. And I said, Ken, I can make one that won't break. I've got a TIG welder, and I welded up a simple front end, and we were able to lash that on, and that made a huge difference in the tightness of the rig. Mm-hmm. Now, coming from a windsurf background, I've always preferred the boom. It just feels more natural to hold the boom. And I think Ken, Duotone has a couple different models. They have the unit, which has the wing, the handles as well. Mm-hmm. But I prefer the Echo style.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same way because of my windsurfing background. I really like the boom and just being able to move your hands around and just grab the boom without looking for the handle and stuff like that. But I guess recently I started using wings with handles too, and I kind of got used to that. And there's some advantages to the handles, I think. I mean, one thing about the Duotone booms is that they add quite a bit of weight to the wing, and you do notice that when you try a lighter wing.
They are coming out with a new model here soon.
Right.
In fact, by the time this interview airs, I think they'll have announced their new product, and I've got some video of that.
Yeah, let's talk about that's the Duotone Slick wing, right? I mean, we've already seen videos and stuff of it, which is kind of an interesting concept. So it combines an inflatable strut with a stiff boom kind of attached to it, right?
Yes, let me see. So it's the Slick incorporates the boom into the strut. Right. One of the it's a lot lighter, and I don't know all the details, but I can tell you that the length of the boom here is the same for all the different sizes. I think they're going to go from a 2.5 meter all the way up to a 7 meter with half increments. So 4, 4.5, 5.0, 5.5, etc. And the same boom will fit all the models. So you can just buy one boom for your quiver, or you can buy a boom for each one. Now they also come in carbon as well as the aluminum. And the aluminum booms are going to have a little bit of an oval shape to them, which are very comfortable on your hands. And it gives you a sense of where the wing is without looking at it, what
Right.
position the wing is in. I know that the carbon one is about a half a pound lighter than the aluminum one. And just the size of it is going to be considerably lighter than the Echo.
And the boom just slides into like these nylon pouches on the front and back, I guess it looks like.
Yes. Now, when you look at that front, let me see if I can get a little bit better angle here. That front attachment, that's going to be changed slightly. There's going to be some padding, some webbing straps that actually Velcro to hold that in. Apparently the guys in Europe, when they were doing tricks where they backwinded, that was coming loose, so they've modified it. This is actually not a production wing. Mm-hmm. It's one of the prototypes with the logos on it. So there's still a few more changes to make, but for the most part, this is what the wings will look like.
So I'm wondering, you're saying the boom is the same length for all sizes. So on the bigger wings, have you, like sometimes I like to put my hand way in the back, like when you're kind of doing a duck jibe type of turn, or going steep upwind, you want to put your hand way back. Sometimes do you ever feel like you want to put your hand further back than the boom goes, or is that not an issue?
No, it's not an issue because the wing is so much tighter that the range of sheeting in and sheeting out is very tight. It's a very tight wing. Mm. So I haven't had that problem.
How does it feel? So how does it feel on the wave when you're luffing it behind you?
It tracks really nice.
Better than the unit was.
I haven't ridden the unit that much.
I'm sorry, I meant the Echo. The Echo, the one.
Yes, better than the Echo. Now if you think of the center strut as the center strut is like the keel in the wind, mm-hmm. or like the tail on a kite. It's going to keep the wing pointed into the wind because the strut acts like a rudder. And the Echo never had that. Mm-hmm. And that's one reason why it oscillated so much.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
You have to remember a little bit, back in, well, it was 18 that Ken started, and the fall of 18, it started to get out in videos, in social media, and all of a sudden everyone was interested, not just enthusiasts, but manufacturers.
Can you play a little video of it, like in action, or just?
Yeah, sorry. So one of the other things unlike the Echo, with the center strut, it floats. Now, if you're used to, that's nothing new if you're using a wing that has a center strut, but it's really nice compared to the Echo. When it sits on the water, it doesn't sink.
The boom doesn't sink when the wind catches it. Yeah.
Yes.
That's nice. Now, when do you think this will be actually ready in the stores? When can we get our first shipment at Blue Planet? I'm wondering.
You're asking the wrong guy here.
Yeah. Got it. Like that's one thing that's kind of been frustrating me with the duotones is they're kind of hard to get and hard to know when we can actually get them.
Well, I think it's not just duotone. I think some of it can be chalked up to the worldwide pandemic.
Sure.
They had to shut their factories down just like we did too. Mm-hmm. Shut our restaurants down, and on the supply chain was affected. I know that they were having trouble getting cloth, and this is just sort of secondhand information I'm hearing from my neighbor. Mm-hmm. I think he did tell me that they have produced a number of units already, but then there's shipping. If it's coming by boat, and you heard about that container ship that went down. Well, not went down, but all the containers fell over.
Yeah, I did hear
apparently
that.
High Tech had a number of F1 wings in one of those containers.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of product was lost there. So I don't know if it's just Duotone. I mean, maybe the other manufacturers have different sources, but
No, I mean it's the same. I mean, I guess Ozone has their own factory, so they're a little bit more. It's more clear like how long it's going to take and when they're going to ship it and stuff like that. It's easier to predict. But yeah, I know everybody's like, I know just the materials you have to order 6 months in advance.
so this is a video that I put together with the little GoPro speedometer.
Mm-hmm.
And what I can tell you about the performance of these wings is that they are head and shoulders better than anything I've ridden. They're super tight. They go upwind, unbelievable. The outline, that they have sort of a square shape. So that wingtip you can bring right down low to the water, and it's really efficient. If the wingtip does catch, it clears really easily. They're really tight. Now this is a 4.5 that I'm using, and this was just a couple days ago. The wind's been cranking here, and I was really powered up with this 4.5.
Yeah, over 20 miles per hour. That's pretty fast.
So that's port or starboard tack is my weak side. I'm a regular foot, so this is my stronger side.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Kahului Harbor that we're looking at. I'm gonna turn the sound down.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. 26 miles per hour. That's impressive. What foil are you using? Like what do you have any advice on the foils?
I'm using a GoFoil. I have I have a lot of the different models. I mentioned earlier I have the 200. That's where I started, and it's where I start when I'm teaching people. I use the 200. I also have the GL series as well as the NLs. And the one I'm riding in this video it's actually a custom tow wing. I think Al's only made a few. I think he gave one to some of the big wave tow surfers on the North Shore of Oahu. You might have seen.
I think I heard about that. I think Derek Hamasaki has one of those maybe. I think I've seen it.
So it's not one that's I don't know if he's planning to bring that to market. Let's see.
So 28 miles an hour was your top speed, it looked like. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Now here's another wing. This is from more recently. And let me turn the sound down. This is one of the prototypes from several months ago. And I'm lucky enough that Ken, lets me use some of the older, the stuff that didn't make the cut. And, he'll make a wing and he'll figure out, okay, this works really well and this doesn't work so well. And there's been a number of people on Maui that have been recipients of the seconds. The really bad ones end up in the trash. The really good ones he keeps. And then some of the others like this one. And this is a 3.3 and it's blowing, gosh, it was gusting up to 40 this day. And
wow.
My first run, the wing was underinflated. My wife was using it. I don't think she pumped it up hard enough. So I came back and pumped it up and then did another run on. So now the foil that I'm using I don't think it's going to be available unless Al puts it into production, but he is working on another wing another foil that is. Foils are underwater, wings are in the air. Okay. He's working on another foil that is considerably faster. And he let me take a run on it, and I didn't have the speedometer when I used it, but it felt really fast. And I'm hoping he'll get me one of those when they come into production.
Yeah, And then, I mean, I guess faster foils are usually smaller surface area and thinner profile, right? I mean, that's kind of, and then more high aspect type of shape. Is that what makes them fast, would you say? Or how did it look?
Smaller, thinner, equal speed. But of course, you're going to need more wind and more skill to get up
And
on.
more speed to get it going and get up on the foil, right? Yeah.
Right. But one thing that I found now, when I first started teaching, I had a Maliko 280. I don't know if you have one of those.
Yeah, that was like super bouncy when they went on the original mast, right? Yeah. I tried that in the early days.
Well, the 280 I thought would be really good for teaching people. And it does foil at about a walking speed. But there's so much drag that you really have to push the thing hard. And for people who are just learning how to use the wing, trying to power that wing to push the board up on foil, it actually, the 200, people did better on the 200 because there was less drag and they could get it up to foil speed easier. And what I found is that in my own learning, as I've graduated down in smaller and smaller wings, that the tiny wing does take more speed to get going, but there's less drag to push it through the water. So it seems like you can get up to that takeoff speed easier. Does it make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Yeah. No, I've had that same experience. So, and you say you still use the Maliko 200 for teaching people how to wing, yeah?
Yes. Now I did do one modification. I cut the mast down from 24 to 15 inches.
Oh, wow. 15-inch mast. Okay.
Yeah. And that's nothing new. There's been other foil manufacturers that have made different mast lengths for beginners.
It's just safer too, right? When you breach, you don't crash from as high, so.
Yes. In fact, when it does breach, it's kind of a rude drop, but usually they'll maintain enough speed to kick it back right up again.
Right.
And it teaches them the importance, of not too high, not too low.
Mm-hmm. Right. That makes sense. You have so many good videos teaching how to wing foil, and then actually also you have that Patreon channel. I just signed up for this yesterday, and it's really cool. I don't know if you mind me sharing some of these posts, but I guess if you pay like $5 a month or so, you can kind of choose how much you want to contribute, but then you get access to all these really detailed technical videos on how to wing foil, which is really cool. Like this one here about tacking, I watched yesterday, and it's I'm going to turn off the sound here, but it just has really good instructions. I have to say it's really well done, Alan. And yeah, so if you're learning how to wing foil, and I guess that's something too, like maybe you talk a little bit about how the pandemic has affected your business, and like how you transitioned to doing more of this kind of virtual coaching and things like that.
Sure. Thank you. I've been running the windsurf school since '85. I came to Maui to windsurf, but like I said, I skipped college and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I fell into what I love to do, and that's teach windsurfing. And I developed the business, and it's grown over the years. We've diversified into surfing and kiting and SUP. And although windsurfing and SUP is our bread and butter, windsurfing and kiting is our bread and butter. When foiling came along, the video is distracting me. When foiling came along, wing foiling, I thought, oh, this is something I could teach in the school. And you remember Ken, he had this stream of prototypes coming into the neighborhood here, and people were really intrigued by foiling. That's my wife. They were really intrigued by foiling, and they wanted to do it. and Robert business was really good. I was the only one that had the wings, none of the shops, there was nothing available.
Didn't buy them yet. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was sharing the wings and giving lessons and turning people on. Anyone that asked, I'd let them try it. And we were poised on, I was getting boards and sales and training instructors, and we were poised to, teach windsurfing. And then COVID hit and changed everything, shut everything down, turned Maui into a car park full of tourist cars. All the restaurants were closed, and we just hunkered down. We went to Costco's like everybody else and loaded up. And so during this downtime, besides doing the house maintenance and the things that everyone did, I thought that I would put together some videos or do a video on this is how we teach wing foiling. And that was, I don't know if you have that one. That's it's on YouTube. It's My Daughter's the Star. But that one, put it up. And
this one, learn how to get up and stay on foil.
It's older.
Huh. Oh, maybe on all the videos. Part 1, how to.
That's it right there. So I just took my daughter down to the beach nearby and took my dog down and took the video camera and just put together, this was the introduction. Mm-hmm. That's my prone foil board that I use for regular surfing. Mm-hmm. And it works on the wing too. Anyway. We just went down, had some fun. And, my daughter at this point, she was able to foil and go upwind, and we were just going to use the big board.
Oh, you just have a short mast.
Yeah. So I put her on the big board, and we just kind of went through, this is how we teach. And it was sort of like the idea was sort of an infomercial on what we're doing at the school. And there was so much positive feedback that I thought I'd do part 2. And that's the one where I'm getting up on foil in the harbor. And people were so appreciative that I was doing that. And a friend said, you should have a Patreon account, which I didn't know what that was. And I went home and looked at it and realized this is me right now. Because again, COVID had shut down the business. And I thought, this is a way that I could take my skills online and teach people, and not just one at a time at the beach like I normally do, but be able to reach everybody. So that's what I've been working on through the COVID thing. It's I'm still in the red, but I'm getting close to, paying off my equipment. But the appreciation far outweighs any monetary support. People telling me that I've helped them do this and do that, and thank you. Well, you do the same thing with so many of your videos. How many videos have you done that help people? It's awesome.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Alan. For me, it's kind of different though, because for us, the pandemic was actually kind of like boom times, because everybody, nobody could travel. People had extra spending money, the stimulus checks, and then they just bought gear, and got out on the water every day. Yeah, you could go out in the water. That was the safest thing you could do, right? So it's been actually very good for our business in terms of equipment sales. But yeah, in terms of tourists, there's nothing right now, right? So, still, I think it hasn't really recovered at all.
Well, let me do a couple quick screen shares as well.
Okay. Let me turn mine off again here. Hold on. Okay. So yeah, I'll let you do the screen share.
Okay, this is my daughter, and this was her kind of first session with the wing on a windsurf board with the dagger board.
Yeah.
The wing she's using, this was kind of the first, I guess you'd call it Echo prototype. This wing was really solid. This thing really changed everything. Uh,
It has like 5 battens or something, yeah?
it had battens. Now, prior to the battens, Ken was using these wings just to go downwind, and you didn't need any battens because he was, holding it like a spinnaker sail. It wasn't until we started sailing at Kanaha and going upwind that they were flapping, and that's really where a lot of the changes began. So I met my wife windsurfing. This is an old picture out of a magazine. I met her in '87, and we have 2 daughters together. My oldest one on my left, she's living in California, married. My younger one is living at home here with her boyfriend, and she's having a really good time. She works up at the Crater. I don't want to say it's as a park ranger, but she's working up at the summit with people up there. And
Nice.
she also wing foils, but she prefers to rock climb, free climb on, let's see.
Where do you go on Maui for free climbing? Is that?
There's a number of places. There's one over in Kihei and over on the backside. And I don't have any pictures of that queued up.
Okay, no worries.
This is my wife when she realized that my old board, her board, fits in the back of her car.
Big smile.
Yeah, she loves wing foiling because it's just so easy. You pump up the wing and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Assuming you have a car that fits your foil. She's also, COVID has changed our relationship for the better. Previously, she would man my office at High Tech here, our office. I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah.
So I had this little kiosk in High Tech, and pre-COVID, she would spend her days in there meeting and greeting people and everything to do with the school.
Yeah.
We have a school van that goes down to the beach for the windsurf gear. And when COVID hit, that was all shut down. But we could go to the beach and wing. So, she's been putting her time in out on the water. There's my old SUP board, which is perfect for her. It's about 85 liters. She's got that's one of the prototype wings. That's the one that I was doing the speed run on earlier. And she's making about almost 9 out of 10 of her jibes now. And which is something that she didn't quite do in windsurfing, even though she's been a lifelong windsurfer.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, like I always struggled doing tack on a small waveboard windsurfing, but on a wing, it's actually, I find it way easier to do a tack because you don't have to jump in front of the wing and stuff like that, So in a lot of ways, winging is actually easier than windsurfing, I find.
Well, one of the things that makes it so addicting, besides the feeling of floating on air, of snowboarding in powder, if you've ever skied or snowboarded, the feeling of powder is exceptional. There's no pounding. But besides all those great things, and it's quick to set up and easy, is that each time you go out, maybe even each run, you learn something new. And it doesn't matter if you're a beginner just holding the wing for the first time or floating around on a big board. Forget the foil, just sail the board around. I've had people do the lessons on the big board and say, this is so fun, and it is, but you haven't even got on the foil board yet and you're loving it. It gets better.
Yeah.
It's truly addicting.
Yeah, I mean, just being up on the foil, that sensation of flying over the water, really, it feels more like you're flying than going over water, right? So it's that is so cool.
And that I don't know if you've been watching any of the America's Cup racing.
Yeah.
Well, last year with the catamarans and this year with the monohulls, it's absolutely incredible how fast they go.
Yeah.
And, us mere mortals will probably never ever get the chance to ride on one, forget owning one. But you can have your own personal hydrofoil yacht right there, for relatively inexpensive.
And in a way, it's, I mean, I don't know, to me, it's almost more interesting because you're basically controlling it with your body weight, it's not like a mechanical control. It's like you're controlling the foil with your body weight, right? So,
I would say it's one of the more freer feelings that you can have. And again, it was in May of 18 that Ken first got that blow up wing. Now, he's not the first. Handheld wings have been around for a long time. And there's another guy, Flash Austin. He deserves the credit for being the first one on Maui to put a wing together on a foil board. And he went out and foiled out and back and got some video. And then I think his wing broke apart and he never put it back together, didn't stick with it. But prior to him,
I saw the footage of him doing that and I thought, no, that looks crazy.
Yeah. And I nobody really thought that it could be what it is today. And I believe it's Tony Lagauche that sometime around 15 or 16 made an inflatable wing, not necessarily with the intention of foiling, but I think he just, put together an inflatable wing instead of ones with struts and spars, and he apparently put that on a foil board and made it work on a foil board more as a novelty. I don't think he thought that it would take off, but he was ahead of his time there.
Yeah. And nobody has a patent on it or anything like that. So it's kind of nice that it's wide open for development and stuff like that, where people don't have to worry about licensing it and so on, right?
Yes. So it's really, since I think Ken is probably responsible for this resurgence, or this round of it anyway, but it was only May of 18 that it started.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I always wondered how you got the all the new wings and the new prototypes so early, but now I know it's because Ken Winner's your neighbor, so no wonder, I guess. But obviously also, I mean, you're a really good spokesperson for Duotone. I think I mean, your videos are one of the reasons why I got into wing foiling too. So,
well, I'm not an official spokesperson for Duotone. I'd rather think of myself, as an ambassador for the sport.
Right.
I'd like to see everyone, try it and excel. It's just that my position is that I've been using these Duotone wings.
Okay, so let's go talk a little bit more about equipment. You said, and I don't know if you have some video of yourself using your board and stuff like that, but you said you only use a front foot strap. You don't really jump because because you're worried about injury, and you often use a harness and things like that. So can you talk a little bit about, for myself, I've never even tried a harness. I felt like it's not really necessary. I feel like it doesn't, there's not as much pressure in the wing as when you're windsurfing. So what made you start using a harness, and yeah, maybe talk a little bit about the gear you use and why you set it up the way you do.
Now, I did do a video on YouTube.
You want me to, maybe I can screen share it, yeah?
Yeah, on how to use the harness, all about the harness.
Okay.
And I did this last year, maybe even longer. Initially, it was, well, the boom is right there and you're sailing along and you think, well, wow, I could probably use a harness here.
Okay, so yeah, so let's talk a little bit about using a harness and why you started using it and so on.
Well, first I thought, let's just try it and see if it works. And I went and made a custom harness line, and I pulled my old windsurf harness out. There it is. And put it on and went out and gave it a few runs and decided, yeah, it was possible, but I didn't really need it. Didn't, you know, wasn't really happening. And what I realize now is that the harness line, I made a custom harness line, a real long one, thinking that I needed a long one because the wing is way up here.
Mm.
But when it's over your head, there's no load on the wing.
Right.
It's when you're going upwind that the boom comes down, the wingtips low to the water. And when you're going upwind, there's a lot of lateral pull. And it's at that point that you need, or you would find a harness line comfortable. So I gave it another try. I pulled out a regular harness line, a Duotone, just regular windsurfing harness line, and got my old kite harness out. That's the one we're looking at now. And maybe later people watching can watch this video to know what we're talking about here. But
Yeah.
the main thing is that you have a hook that allows you to quickly get out of the harness line.
Yeah, you don't want it as small as a kite surfing hook, yeah, or the
Yes.
a bit more open up, yeah. Okay.
And then, you know, when you have the hook getting on your board, you can damage your board with the hook. So I go through a couple different methods to get on the board. And there's another video that I have on YouTube as well, where I'm riding my prone board, and I talk about how to get up when you're using a harness hook.
Yeah.
Talk about the length of the harness line and the placement.
So would you say when you hold the boom, it's about where your elbow is? Is that about the length or
On
the middle?
Yeah, you know, we used to grab the boom and then pull the loop down to your elbow, and
Yeah.
that was, or to the crotch in your arm here, and that was a good general ballpark. You know, some people like them shorter, some people like them longer. There's only a handful of people using harness lines over here. Ken Winter is one of them. And there's a few other people that have tried them on, and I'm getting people online talking about them. And there's certainly a lot of chatter online. You don't need them.
Yeah.
You need them.
Yeah, a lot of people talking about it online. Here on Oahu, I haven't seen anybody using a harness, but yeah.
Well,
I find it interesting though, intriguing.
It's not necessary. You don't have to have it. There are some drawbacks. You know, it'll hit you in the face when you're trying to pump up on the board. And if it swings a lot, you're wearing the harness hook, you can't lie on the board unless you unclip it, right? Because it'll damage your board. Well, you just can't lay flat on the board if you have to paddle or something. But it's easy enough to unclip it and let it hang to the side. And like I said, it's a little harder to get on the board sometimes, but there's ways around that. When you're in the harness going upwind with the bigger wing, as soon as you get comfortable with it, you'll love it.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, because you're basically just using your body weight to power up, and you don't use your arms anymore, really, just for control.
Yes.
Same as when you're windsurfing.
In higher wind with a smaller wing, it is a little scarier to hook in, but you know, we haven't had that many light wind days over here or I haven't had that many sessions out on my 6 meter. I do have a 6 meter wing, and going out in 10 to 12 knots with the harness and going upwind is a dream. It's so comfortable and steady. Your weight does the work. Your arms are just relaxed. It's a really wonderful feeling. You're not going to use the harness going downwind. Just the way the wing folds out, you're just not going to hook in. It's really just for going upwind. And
well,
for me, there's a shot of my foot straps.
Yeah.
I only have the front foot straps. I switch like a windsurfer. I'll switch tacks after each run. Well, sometimes I might do a short run where I ride switched or toe side. I don't have a back strap because I move my back foot around a lot. And I did have it for a while, and I fell and kind of tweaked my ankle. And I decided that I don't really need the back strap because I'm not jumping, and it just was kind of getting in the way, and I don't want to injure myself. And I made a pledge early on to myself that I wouldn't take this sport to the air, because where does it stop? And I'm really glad I did, because seeing Balls Mueller doing those loops, he's inspiring, you know. And in the beginning, he was throwing himself up in the air and let's try this or let's try that, and just coming down in a heap.
Yeah.
And in fact, I made a comment on one of his Instagram pages that you have 9 lives and that one just cost you one. You know? The one where he goes in the shore break, it just gets eaten up in the shore break.
Oh, wow. Yeah. With the foil kind of going over him and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I injured myself a number of years ago. It was a pretty serious back injury, and I've healed up 100%. But
so you told me about this injury yesterday. Can you tell us a little bit more exactly how that happened? So
I was surfing at Ho'okipa on a relatively big day, and I did a late takeoff, and I free fell head first, and I put my arms up to protect from the board, and I landed on the water like this instead of, you know, like this. So I didn't penetrate.
Let me stop the screen sharing so you can show us what you're.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. So what happened?
I was surfing at Ho'okipa, and I just did a late takeoff and went over head first, and I put my arms up in the air to keep from getting hit by the board.
Yeah.
And I impacted the water like this instead of, you know, like this.
Okay.
And it was a compression fracture on my spine.
Wow.
Paratroopers get them, you know, landing hard on their bum. And it was, you know, I've healed fine, but it was pretty close to what they call a burst fracture, where pieces of the bone enter the spinal cord and paralysis occurs. So I had a near life-changing experience there. And I think that was when I was 55, 54. So since then, I've kind of, I've just decided not to take it to the air. I've stopped kite surfing. I don't kite surf anymore because I don't trust myself to not jump. And wing foiling is something that's less, it's a lot safer than so many other things out there. And I see some older folks down at the beach, and old is relative. You know, I'm 59. I know when I paddle out at Ho'okipa, I'm like the oldest one out there. Now that was Ken Winter catching a wingtip while he was in the harness.
Oh.
That's one thing that if you're going to try a harness, you want to be aware of. If that wingtip catches,
let's look at that again.
It doesn't end up well. And I talk about this in the video with sound.
Yeah. So the wingtip catching right here, and then
you're in the harness.
You end up falling on the wing.
You can't get out. You can't unhook.
Right.
So if you're going to try the harness, that's something to consider. I mean, this is not something that you're going to go and use the first week of wing foiling. You know, you want to have some skill.
All right.
So
yeah, the other thing I wanted you to talk about was this cool move that I really was intrigued by, and I still haven't been able to pull it off, but that's the starfish. So how do you get into it in the first place? So you
well, I sort of did this by accident. Just hold it right there for a second, if you would.
Okay. Yeah.
I was giving a lesson to a novice sailor, and he was out, I believe he was on the big board. I don't know if it was the windsurfer or the big foil board. And he went out and he did the turn, and he had flipped the wing over, and he came out of it the other way. And like, wow, how did he do that? He did it by accident, but the way he jibed the wing and spun the board right around, I said, oh, I'm gonna go try that. So I went out and I was trying to do what I saw him do, and I'm not sure what I did, but I was flipping the wing over just like this,
Okay.
and the wing got behind me, and sort of something like that. And I said, okay, I'm gonna try and do that and get the wing behind me. So I went out a few more times, and I was able to flip the wing over. And as you turn downwind, you might back up there a little bit.
Okay.
But as you turn downwind, you're moving with the wind. So the amount of pressure on the wing is minimal. So if you want to do this, it's relatively easy. You start your jibe, you turn the wing so that the wingtip drags in the water or starts to invert. So you flip the wing over.
Okay.
And then from here, turn the corner so that you're going with the wind. And at this point, as long as it's not blowing a gale, the wing is almost weightless because you're moving with the wind. At this point, you're coasting on the foil.
Okay.
You get your hand on the handle and you can bring it up behind you. Now, at this point, if there's enough wind, the wind will keep the wing against you, just friction. So I did this. I was goofing off with it, and I was going down the coast thinking, okay, this is pretty cool. How am I going to get out of it? I don't know. I'll figure that out when I get there. And so I got down there and I reached up and grabbed the handle and flipped it over and sailed away. And I thought, well, that was cool. And I had put in a full day, and I packed up and I was driving home, and Alex Segura calls me and says, dude, I went to get my camera. I got to get your new move. This is Alex Segura's filming this. So I'm like, no, I'm going.
You pull out of it. Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm going home, Al. And he's like, oh man, you got to do it, man. Someone else is going to do it and claim your move. And I'm like, nah. And I'm halfway home, and I'm looking, the wind's blowing. It's a beautiful sunny day. And I thought, we should do this while the sun's out. So I turned around, I went back, called him up and said, I'm coming back. And I went out and did this. So it's a fun move. It's relatively easy to do and easy to get out of. The trick is you turn downwind and you flip the wing upside down, and then get the handle and pull it around behind you. And then to get out of it, you just reach it up and bend over it. It's going to flip or jibe over your head.
So cool.
I've yet to do it, on a coast run. I think we're going to go today. It's blowing pretty good over here. I think we're going to do a Maliko run.
The windy day for sure. Yeah. Oh, okay. So you end up going back to the beach, setting up again, and then pulling it off like that. That's a good story.
Then Al came and filmed it. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. I think we already kind of went over the time we allotted, so I appreciate you talking about all the details. And what do you do like to stay healthy? Like what are your secrets to staying fit and young at your age?
Well, just trying to stay active, just trying to do something every day. I haven't been doing much cross training lately. Since I started doing the videos, I've had a lot of time sitting in front of the computer, but I have been trying to get out probably like 4 times a week to wing foil. So that's been my main exercise, wing foiling.
How long do you go out on the water? Like I find sometimes when I go out for too long, I just start hurting myself. I don't know. Do you have like a certain amount of time that's good for you, or you just stay out as long as you can?
Usually I'd say around 2 hours is my average session.
Yeah.
But remember, I have a harness. And when I did that speed run with the little yellow wing just a couple of days ago, my wife was using it, and she doesn't use the harness line. So I'm like, okay, it's really windy. I want to go get the GoPro speedometer going. And I went out and I did my first speed run, and I turned around and I'm going back upwind, and I'm like, no harness line, dang. And just those 2 runs without the harness line, my shoulder was starting to hurt, and I mean, I don't know how many miles I've paddled surfing and how many times I've windsurfed, it's my shoulders. I'm not going to get a knee replacement. It's going to be a shoulder replacement.
Yeah,
But
that's pretty common.
If I have to, I hope I never have to do that. But my shoulders have more miles than my knees or hips. But I rely on the harness more than I realize, trying to go upwind there. It's just that time of hooking in and resting your arms, resting your shoulders, just that one leg upwind, then you're fresh to go downwind.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me too, sometimes I just kind of put my arms, straighten out my arms and hold the wing over my head and just kind of relax a little bit. And I mean, even without a harness, you can, but yeah, I can see how if you have bad shoulders, it's not an easy thing to do after a while. All right. So do you have any sponsors that you want to plug or anything that you want to mention like that?
Well, I'd like to thank Alex Segura for taking care of me with the foils. He makes a great product. Ken and Duotone have been very generous with their products. And I have to admit that I haven't used a lot of other stuff, but there's, everyone has a lot of good stuff out there, and it really doesn't matter what you use. The main thing is that you're using it, that you get out there. And this sport, you learn every time you go, and it's a good physical workout, and you think about it too, so it gets you thinking. You won't regret it. If there's one thing, one negative thing, and that is that it's very addicting, and it's gonna take some of your time from something else, which for better or worse.
And yeah, and your wallet will feel a little bit lighter too.
There's that aspect too.
Yeah. So what do you want to leave people with? And any last words?
Just to get out on the water and give it a try. You won't regret it. And if it's good to try new things. Yeah. And living here in Hawaii, most of our days are like other people's vacations. So, take advantage of where you live and what you do.
Well, you're certainly living your dream, and I hope that things get back to where you can actually make money with your business again. Sorry to hear that you're struggling right now, but hopefully people can support your Patreon account and your great instructional videos online. Keep posting that kind of stuff. That's really cool. Very, very helpful.
Well,
I think for people learning.
I think we're starting to come out of it here. You can see light at the end of the tunnel. I think we're gonna be all right. And yeah.
All right. So for the Blue Planet show, who do you think I should interview next? Do you have any ideas on who I should talk to?
Well, let's see. I could think of a few different people. Well, Ken would be interesting.
But you said he's kind of, you might not want to talk to me. Can you ask him?
Yeah, I can ask him.
Okay.
In fact, I'll try and send you his email.
Okay.
Mark Rapahorst. He's a very interesting guy.
Yeah.
He did SIC, he did the SUP paddling. He's into winging.
For sure.
Alex Segura, he's got a lot of history.
Yeah.
And Robbie Nash is, of course, an icon. Some up and coming people over here on Maui. I think probably one of the best foilers here on Maui, and he's an exceptional winger too, is Kane DeWild.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He has some really sweet moves. But I was down at the harbor not too long ago, and he goes, "Hey, Alan, I figured something out." I'm like, "What is it, Kane?" He says, when you bring the wing down to the rail, you can go so much faster upwind. And I said, oh no, you figured that out.
It's like closing the gap on a windsurf board, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I talk about it in the video for how to go upwind.
Yeah.
But he is so fast and so maneuverable. He's just a real pleasure to watch.
And he always uses this pretty small wing too, right? Like he uses like smaller wings, and just once he gets going, then he doesn't need as big of a wing, right?
You're talking smaller foil or smaller wing?
Wing, wind wing.
He does use a smaller wing, and some of his foils are pretty small, but I've seen him like glide exceptionally far. He's kind of making his own foils and really working at it.
Yeah.
I
mean, I've listened to some of his interviews on the Progression Project, and he's like, it's very thoughtful. He thinks about everything and has a lot of interesting theories and tests out stuff, and he makes his own tail wings and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he's definitely someone I want to talk to soon.
Yeah, and he's just a kid too, so
right,
he's got a lot of future there.
Yeah.
Other up and coming, let's see. There's a whole bunch of kids that are getting into it over here.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the cool things about wing foiling too is that it's such a diverse group of people. Like, a lot of young kids getting into it, people with a surfing background, windsurfing, kite surfing background, a lot of different backgrounds. Plus, I think just people are so intrigued by it, even if they have no water sport experience, they're interested in it. So
yes,
that's a very broad appeal.
It appeals to everybody. There's a lot of old time windsurfers that I haven't seen for years that are down there, like the old days windsurfing, but they're down there trying to figure it out. There's another guy, nice gentleman, Alika, 250 pounds. Oh, I'm not suggesting him for an interview,
okay.
But he's down there all the time. But the point is, he weighs 250 pounds, and he's almost as graceful as Kane. He's
Wow.
really smooth. He can do a lot of tricks. But there's no such thing as a 250-pound windsurfer freestyle stylist, right? You can't be 250-pound sup paddler. The big guys, I'm sorry, but there's a disadvantage when you weigh 250 pounds. But it doesn't seem to affect him. Now, he uses a little bit bigger wing than everyone else, and his foil, it's an access foil that's got it's really high aspect. It's got a huge wingspan on it. But I've been teaching kids to windsurf for decades, and it's pretty easy to put them on the raft with the little wing, and they drift out, and they turn around and they drift in, and with a lot of effort you can get them planing on a little board and a smaller sail, but generally they just don't have the weight to make it work. But with foiling, I'm seeing these little kids on little wings going out and foiling and doing it quickly. They're up and foiling in a matter of days, and they're out there riding around, where trying to get them to do that on a windsurf board would take a year or two. So, I have always felt like, for me personally, I brought a lot of background, windsurfing and kiting and everything, to this sport. And I was one of the guys that just stepped on and made it go. And I've really got a head start on everyone else. But when I see these kids that are coming on, where they're going to take this sport, not just, in their maneuverability, but when they start doing these tricks in the surf,
really just starting to scratch the surface of what's possible. I think, there's going to be so much progression in the sport. It's just amazing. But actually, I wanted to ask you, like, if you have someone that has no experience in water sports, no foiling background, and they want to learn how to wing foil, like what is your progression in teaching them? Like how do you start them out?
I start them off on the big windsurf board with a dagger board. And we didn't talk about this in the video. Maybe I don't know if you can add that in later, but a lot of people show up with a SUP board, and the SUP board has the volume to get them out there to float around. But without the dagger board, they end up downwind very quickly.
Drift, yeah.
So the dagger board does two things. One is it prevents lateral slip, and it's a pivot point, to steer the board.
Right.
I know that some of the shops, I don't know if High Tech does, but I think some of the shops have like glue on or strap on dagger boards that you can put on your SUP boards. That might be something that you could offer even as a rental. Take your SUP board that I sold you last year, put this on it, take the wing, go down to someplace. I don't know if Ke'ehi Lagoon has landfall on the downwind side, but someplace like Kailua Bay might work.
Yeah.
Go out and learn how to sail it out, turn around and sail back with the goal of coming back to the same spot. And when my students are able to push that windsurf board almost onto a plane, that tells me that they're loading the wing, that they've got enough sense to sheet in and sheet out. And when they can come back to the same spot, they know how to turn around, and they know how to steer the wing to get the board to go upwind. Mm-hmm. Once they can do that, then the next step is to go on the foil board. And, I wanted to ask you about.
So you never take them behind a boat or anything, like you don't do the foil practicing behind a boat. You don't really need that, I guess. Yeah? Once you know how to handle the wing, that's your power source, right? Yeah.
In a perfect world, behind a boat would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe an e-foil might be the next best thing.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done much e-foiling?
Yeah, I have done it a bunch.
Do you offer it in lessons at all? I mean, do you have them in the shop?
We no longer offer lessons or rentals just because of the cost of liability insurance, but we refer people. There's a company called eFoil Experience here on Oahu that we refer people to learn how to e-foil.
Well, ideally, in a perfect world, behind a boat or jet ski, or even on an e-foil would be great. But the reality of, like, I'm sure it's just as hard on Oahu as it is. Maybe it's worse here on Maui, to get permits to do stuff behind a boat. You have to go through the state and get the permit through the state, and how it is.
Yeah, not many places you can do it, actually. That's true.
And then even here on the North Shore, on the rules and regulations for jet skis during the winter, during the whale season, you need to have permits and license, and it's a thrill craft. If you're going to go in the surf, you need the tow thing, and it's just the reality. But I've had a lot of people who come with no foil experience get the feeling for the wing on the big board, and then apply it to the foil board, the big foil with the short mast with the big floaty board. A lot of people have learned that way. And then they're off to get their own equipment and practice on their own.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, and I think winging is probably the easiest way to learn how to foil, other than behind a boat or on an e-foil, probably. It's definitely much easier, I think, to learn how to wing foil or to foil on with a wing than in the waves, because then there's a whole additional complication of having to catch a wave and get up on your feet and all that kind of stuff. If you're surfing and even stand-up paddle surfing is not that easy to catch the wave and figure it out.
I had that discussion with a guy this morning who's actually, emailed, he's actually a winger that can foil. And it's too windy over here the last couple of days. It's just been smoke on the water.
Yeah.
So he says he wants to try prone on his SUP board. And I'm like, well, he's got an 80-liter board.
Oh,
I'm like, no, that's too big. You need to get a prone board if you want to prone. And yes, it's easier. It's going to be easier to prone in the surf than it is to SUP in the surf. He has no SUP experience, and trying to SUP for the first time, you need to have a real easy Waikiki style wave. But of all the sports, whether it's kite surfing or windsurfing, prone surfing, sup foiling, if you've never done any of that, it's going to be easiest to learn, I believe, with a wing.
I agree.
Ideally, behind a boat, or the e-foil might be the next best thing, next easiest way. But again, the logistics of getting a boat, you need a driver, you need a place. I have a boat, and I took my wife out. We did a snorkel trip to Molokini, and I brought the foil along, and my daughter and her friends, and we all took turns on the foil. And my wife, got up and scissored, damaged her ribs, and she was out for 6 months.
Oh, geez.
And then, so she's better. So we go back to the beach, and we're going to wing foil, and she goes out on the wing foil board, and neither one of us thought of a vest. And she fell and did the same thing. Another 6 months. So she's got a late start, but she's
determined though. Twice it happened, and she's still going. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
But hey, I've watched a lot of your videos, and you do a really great job of filming and editing, and it's really easygoing, and the information is really clear and concise, and it you've done a lot of good work.
It is kind of it is a lot of work to put out good content, but I try, just try to be consistent, try to do one a week. That's my goal, so, and then, we definitely I see a lot of rewards from that too. People appreciate it, and people support our business because, people know about our business because of the videos. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was the whole reason why I started the YouTube stuff.
Yeah.
And then the Patreon stuff just fell into place.
And I think once people start coming back to Maui, you'll see a lot of returns from that. People are going to seek you out because of your videos. People will be like, oh yeah, this guy knows what he's doing. So I'm sure your business is going to do well going forward. It's going to just get better and better.
I'm planning on coming to Oahu to visit my dad.
Oh yeah.
Probably he gets his second COVID shot on the 3rd of March. And I thought I'd give him a week to, get solid.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can come over without worrying about bringing anything.
Okay. Yeah. Let's meet up when you're here, and maybe we can do a video together, do a collaboration.
Yeah, maybe. I just would like to wing in Kailua.
Yeah, let's do it.
Or even
Kailua flat island is super fun actually when the wind's the right direction and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and might be too early for a south swell, but is it Kahala? Where is it?
Yeah, Kahala is where we end up going a lot, just because it's easy and there's like showers and stuff like that. But Diamond Head is also really fun. We like going out at Diamond Head. It's kind of like the old days of windsurfing. When there's a south swell, Diamond Head gets good. And there's a few other spots like Hickam Air Force Base. My wife is in the military, so I can go there. And that's like, I just went there for the first time a couple of days ago, and it was amazing. It's like a super smooth wave there that's kind of protected from the wind. So right by the airport runway, it's awesome. Yeah.
Nice.
There's a few good spots. And then on the North Shore, guys go out at Revies and stuff like that. And there's some good winging on the North Shore for sure. We got a lot of good spots on Oahu.
I got a lot of that over here.
Yeah.
I'd rather just cruise around in Kailua.
The mellow stuff, yeah. And that's where Kahala is pretty nice. Kailua is good, but like a lot of times for beginners, I don't really recommend it that much, especially if you're regular foot, because first of all, you're going out, on your opposite side, so it's hard to get going. If you're not used to being switched, having your stance switched, and then you end up going downwind, and then you have to walk back up the beach, and it's it can be quite exhausting, and it's hard to kind of get off the beach in the first place, if you don't know how to go upwind. So it's not actually, I find it not a great spot to learn.
but it is fun though. It does have some fun waves and good consistent conditions out there for sure.
Yeah.
You do need more wind though. Like it needs, like when you guys on Maui have the smoke on the water days, then that's when Kailua gets good here.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's probably good today.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. I heard it was really good the last couple of days here too on Kailua. But yeah, I'm gonna try to head out this afternoon too. I got some stuff I got to do, but thanks so much,
All right.
Alan, for joining
Okay,
me.
I hope you got stuff to work with there.
Oh no, it was great. I appreciate it.
Okay,
And,
well, I appreciate it too.
yeah, and then when you're here, let's stay in touch, and maybe we can do another interview in a while, in 6 months or so. We'll talk about what's new. And yeah, and thanks for sharing the stuff about the new duotone wing. I'm kind of excited to try that. Hopefully soon. Hopefully it won't take forever to get out into the marketplace. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, put your order in early.
But yeah, if I can get an early prototype or whatever, I'd always.
I'll talk to Ken and see if he has any sway. I don't know if he has. I mean, that's like.
Yeah. No, great. Appreciate
only
that.
ask.
Appreciate that. Get to know the right people, I guess. Right on. Okay, Alan. Thanks
Robert,
so much.
thank you.
Have a great day. Hope
Have
you
a good session.
get a little session this afternoon too.
Right on.
Appreciate your time. Take care, buddy.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Aloha.
All right, you're still here. Thanks so much for watching and listening. I really appreciate it. And if you're still here, that means this show is for you. I realize it's a very tiny, tiny segment of the population that's gonna be watching this whole thing or listening. And of course, if you are as crazy about wing foiling as I am, you can't get enough of it. So that's probably why you're still here. And I appreciate it. Of course, please, if you like it, please give it a thumbs up. It helps our ratings on YouTube. So far, our reception has been really good of the first 2 Blue Planet Show episodes. So I'm hoping to build that momentum some more. And a little tip for our viewers, if you subscribe to our channel and watch the interviews in the first week that we posted, you get to watch it ad-free. After a week, we monetize it and it starts playing ads on YouTube. So the best time to watch is during the first week, right after we post it. And you can also click that little bell icon by the subscribe button, and that will give you a notification when we post a new show. So you can always stay up to date and watch it ad-free. That's just a little bonus for our subscribers. So again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the water. Aloha.